Hi. Um, Although what I've written is not necessarily original sort of thoughts or feelings on religion, it is my own writing, and it's a rehash. It's heavily influenced. It's quite influenced by Hitchens and Dawkins, but I believe in what essentially what they say. So I see religion as a plague which causes trouble, division and hurt all over the world. An absurd idea which needs to be eradicated in the same way that smallpox was. Religion is a dogmatic hangover from a period in time before we had modern science and reason. The sole reason people have believed in it so strongly is that it has been passed down from generation to generation. Children's minds are a blank canvas, and as such are open massively to persuasion. If a child were to be told from a young age that there was an invisible Ronald McDonald clown god in the sky, and that any rejection of the Ronald McDonald god would mean eternal damnation, and everyone in the child's family and locality believed in Ronald McDonald the clown god handing out free burgers in heaven, it is extremely likely that the child would grow into an adult who would vehemently and unquestionably defend such an idea against any external or internal questioning. After all, how can you disprove or prove the existence of a Ronald McDonald clown god? It is impossible to prove or disprove the existence of something for which there is no scientific evidence. This is why it is called faith. And yet the thought of a Ronald McDonald clown god handing out burgers would clearly be absurd to anyone outside of the vicinity of people indoctrinated with such an ideology. However, the human mind is such a strong and complex entity that it is programmed to believe from an early age any social conditioning which it is subjected to. An innate result of evolution is that we are hardwired to believe in what we are told in infancy. In a primitive and dangerous world from which our ancestors have developed, only the descendants of offspring who did not have time to question split-second decisions survived. It is therefore a built-in feature that we must believe what we are told from infancy without questioning it. Such a singular concept can also be transposed and transcended to the human race's struggle to survive over several hundreds of thousands of years. As the continuation of mankind has been exponentially helped with the sharing of thoughts and ideas, we are by very nature a tribal and social species. The passing of knowledge from generation to generation has enabled us to live throughout the entire planet as the dominating species. Such a collective sharing does, however, come at a price. The price is the sharing of a tribal ideology of religion. The fact that we have self-awareness has resulted in the need to explain the world around us, and this in itself is not a problem. However, we see repetition again and again in previous civilizations with an answer to the question of life, the universe and everything being wrapped up in a sky god solution. Religion is also, in my opinion, and the opinion of others, a symptomatic knee-jerk response to the possible realization that there is nothing after death. It is easy to see why pre-scientific ignorant civilization would choose the junk theory of religion over no theory at all. It is a difficult and upsetting concept to think that the strong bonds we have formed throughout our lives with families and loved ones will not be continued after death. It is comforting to think that an afterlife where the strong emotional tethers we have accumulated on this mortal coil will be repeated in eternity. Yet such a belief in an idea doesn't make such an ideology true. Self-consciousness, therefore, is a double-edged sword. It is an incredible achievement of nature to have produced beings which have the ability of self-awareness. Yet the problem is that the human mind seems to have a blocking function, which seems unable to conceive that it is just an organic entity which will eventually wither away. It is the plight and curse of the self-conscious mind that we are perhaps the only species who know we will eventually cease to exist. It is almost arrogance to suggest that we are important enough to have a creator who has blessed us with an afterlife. It is a privilege to be free from the shackles of a false belief system, as I believe that we are indeed privileged to be here at all, when taking into account that 99.9% of species which have ever existed are extinct, and although it may not be a very savoury thought, each ejaculation produces roughly 300 million sperm cells, meaning that the chances of you being here at all are 1 in several hundred million, even during the conception process. We are a small blue-green planet, an infinitesimally tiny speck in what may be possibly an eternal universe. We are the only inhabitable planet in our solar system, perhaps even in the entire universe. The concept of intelligent design, as the Bible and other texts lay it out, is incompatible with science. In previous centuries, we have taken comfort and built civilizations on the false premise of a sky god. The problem is that our technological and scientific revolutions have only come about in the past 200 years or so. It largely flies in the face of any ancient texts which were written by men in the desert a couple of thousand years ago. And there really is a disconnect between the idea of a being in the sky watching everything we do and the actual important discoveries made in the last couple of hundred years, which completely blow this idea out of the water. I suppose a belief in God would be fine if it were just kept inside the mind, or at least maybe inside the home. But it is not. Islam is a factional religion, and even within its own different variations, causes division, separation, violence, and unwanted hatred even amongst its believers. It may only be a very, very small minority of believers in Islam who cause violence and the death in the name of Muhammad. However, even one death in the name of organised religion is one death too many. The Bible has some horrible and morally disgusting passages. It is entirely ridiculous that we should only believe in a set of gods, or one God, just because we happen to have been born into a particular faith, into a particular part of the world. And the fact is that most religions will tell you that a non-believer is going to hell, and that they are to be chastised by anybody who chooses not to follow the faith. It is anyone who chooses to follow the faith can chastise them, should I say. So it is the form of control. Religion is the form of control which has been used throughout the centuries to justify repression. Indeed, sermons were carried out in Latin for hundreds of years to people who could not speak or understand them. Many attempts to translate the Bible into English or other languages not used by the ruling elites or clergy was punishable by death. Do not forget that it is only in the last few hundred years that the revolution of the printing press has brought a renaissance in education and discovery. We are supposed to believe in a multicultural society. It is true that we do live in a multicultural society, but that where cultures and religions are bound together, it separates us, and the different cultures associated with religions make sure that we are integrated as much as oil and water. I've experienced personal difficulties myself when trying to have a relationship with a family, with a girl who was from the Sharia faith, and I had very real fears, very real founded fears for my own life and her life. Now it's this very real division which worries me. I'm not saying that prejudice does not exist outside of the realms of a faith-based religion, but that religion is an excuse which is used time and time again to repress people, to stop us from marrying or mixing, and only further to separate us as a species, and I think it is ridiculous. I feel that there is a liberalist tendency which suggests that we should respect people's beliefs, and that the classroom is not the place for such a philosophical